Liberals are mad. Liberals are mad. Rashid Kensington says Trump, as usual, cave into China, and China would make it a 0% tariff. Really? Is that what you think happened? All right, well, let's go into it. And let me also say I appreciate you guys in the chat for contributing into the chat and giving y'all diverse opinions. Some people agree, some people disagree. Let's evaluate it. Make sure y'all hit a like for the algorithm, subscribe to the channel with turn on your notifications. This is the initial report, the most recent report of Trump and what's going on with China now that there's a 90-day pause so that they can continue the negotiations. Let's check it out.
To the latest on the president's trade war, and news breaking overnight that China and the U.S. have reached a short-term agreement. Our senior political correspondent, Rachel Scott, is tracking the latest on this trade deal. Good morning, Rachel.
Michael, good morning to you. And this is a breakthrough in talks between the world's two largest economies, but it's also a dramatic retreat from President Trump's 145% tariffs that he imposed on Chinese imports. After all of the tough talk and hard lines, both sides agreeing to dramatically roll back their tariffs, at least for now.
I always like to get it from all perspectives, even from people that may not necessarily align with my political views, like ABC. We all know that Trump doesn't care for ABC because ABC is always trying to paint the narrative a certain way. But I like to get it from all sides. And so let's get it from this side first.
This morning, the Trump administration emerging from a marathon weekend of negotiations, announcing the U.S. has reached a trade deal with China to significantly lower most tariffs for 90 days.
We have reached an agreement on a 90-day pause and substantially moved down the tariff levels.
The U.S. agreed to roll back its steep 145% tariff on Chinese imports to 30%, and China agreeing to lower its tax on American goods from 125% to 10% for weeks.
So, how was that any different than what Trump has said initially that he wanted? He said that we had to have the upper hand in these conversations and in these agreements. And the only reason why we raised it to 145% was because China had raised it to 125%. And so we were doing reciprocal tariffs, but there needed to be a tariff because it was an imbalance on the way that we are treated, not only with the amount of goods and services that they're selling over here to the United States of America to continue to make their country rich, but because of how they treat us and how they treat our businesses and how we're not allowed to do business in the same way that they are allowed to do business over here in the United States of America. So they both decided to have saner heads prevail during discussions, which Trump had already said that he was going to do because he said that he had been talking to China. China lied about it and said that they hadn't been having discussions in the first place. They have been having discussions, obviously. And so when liberals were saying, no, they're not even talking to Trump, and he's just like, no, they've been under trade negotiations for a long time. And when they reached the deal with the UK, which is a waterfall agreement, it sets the precedent the same way that I said that that it sets the precedent. And I explained this last week. It set the precedent for how they're going to negotiate with other countries. It then translated into China lowering their tariffs and the U.S. Well, they're both agreeing to lower tariffs to 10 and 30%, which we still have the upper hand. But yet you'll still see the liberal media sit here and tell you, oh, Trump caved. How did he cave? He decided to reduce the tariffs to 30% to their 10% because that is what reciprocal tariffs are. This is very simple. This is not even anything that's overly complicated, but let's continue in with the show.
The president has been defiant about keeping his tariffs in place, even as markets tumbled and retailers warned their shelves could go empty.
I know what the hell I'm doing. I know what I'm doing, and you know what I'm doing, too.
China took a hard line, too, insisting no matter how long the trade war lasts, we'll never yield. But just as both sides touched down in Geneva, Switzerland for those high-stakes talks, the president with a change in tone, suggesting he would be willing to drop his tariffs even lower to 80%. The deal the U.S. reached is much lower than that.
We concluded that we have shared interest. The consensus from both delegations this weekend is neither side wants a decoupling.
On Wall Street, stock futures surging as the U.S. and China return back to the negotiating table in hopes of reaching a long-term deal.
Trump told you guys, and I actually played it, I believe either Thursday or Friday. Trump told you guys, and he said, listen, buy stocks now. We are about to be in the golden era, the golden age of success. It is going to be an unprecedented time of wealth for Americans in the United States of America. Y'all need to get in and why it's low. I said it on April 2nd. You guys were sitting there acting crazy. Oh my God, look at our retirement. In less than 45 days, everything has fully recovered and stocks are surging. So you were so mad and upset. I'm leaving anytime I want to acknowledge it. I said, well, don't sell. You ain't got to worry about it. What, you retiring tomorrow? Don't sell. I'm pretty sure you're going to be okay within 6 months. I'm pretty sure you're going to be okay within a year. Just sit, keep doing what you're doing, keep on dollar cost averaging, make sure that you put a lump sum of money into it so that we can get really rich as a result of it, and stocks are surging. Why? Because we have trade talks and trade deals on the table that are customized. We call it bespoke. All right, it's called bespoke. Bespoke means that it's customized to each customer's needs. Everything is booming. Everything is making money. All of the things have recovered, and we running up a bag, and you sitting here on your hands because you felt some type of way. And this is why I keep telling you, stop acting like your mama. Get out of your mama's emotions. Pray that away. Pray away the gay. Pray away the gay. Get out of your emotions. We make business decisions. This dude hadn't been in office for less than 100 days, and y'all was already, oh, God, I can't believe it. Sell everything. Get out of your emotions and hold off for 1 second so that you can benefit from this, because we are about to have one of the greatest moments in history, and you not going to be able to miss when it comes to running up a bag. Join the Patreon. Link is in the description, as well as pinned to the top of the chat. Good God.
So investors are rejoicing this morning, but the full economic impact of this on and off again trade war still remains very unclear at this point. That question will be answered likely in 90 days as these two sides continue their negotiations, Michael.
Yeah.
So for the next 90 days, it is going to be a 30% tariff on China instead of 145%, which means that y'all can get y'all Shein and y'all Temu products while Trump negotiates the master plan to make sure that Americans are benefiting from what's happening inside of the White House. Let's continue. This is Trump himself discussing the pause on tariffs with China.
Today, we achieved a total reset with China after productive talks in Geneva. Both sides now agreed to reduce the tariffs imposed after April 2nd to 10% for 90 days as negotiators continue on the larger structural issues. And I want to tell you that a couple of things. First of all, that doesn't include the tariffs that are already on, that are our tariffs, and it doesn't include tariffs on cars, steel, aluminum, things such as that.
Got to protect our industries.
Or tariffs that may be imposed on pharmaceuticals, because we want to bring the pharmaceutical businesses back to the United States, and they're already starting to come back now based on tariffs. Because they don't want to pay 25, 50, or 100% tariffs, so they're moving them back to the United States. I spoke to Tim Cook this morning, and he's going to, I think, even up his numbers, $500 billion. He's going to be building a lot of plants in the United States for Apple.
Tim Cook, the CEO of Apple. This is why it's great to have good Jesus, hold on. This is why it's great to have great relationships with the people that you're doing business with. All right, let's continue.
And we look forward to that. I really do look forward to that. But the talks in Geneva were very friendly. The relationship is very good. We're not looking to hurt China. China was being hurt very badly. They were closing up factories. They were having a lot of unrest. And they were very happy to be able to do something with us. And the relationship is very, very good. I'll speak to President Xi maybe at the end of the week. We have some other things we're doing. But one of the biggest things that we're doing, and I don't know if people realize this, but we made a great deal with China, a great trade deal. but it was a much bigger deal originally, and then they canceled it right in the last day. Some of you faces I remember were there when that happened. I remember you. And we had a deal where they opened up their country to trade with the United States. And they took that away at the last moment, and then I canceled the whole thing. And then 6 months later, we ended up doing a smaller deal, but it was a big deal. It was $50 billion worth of product that they were going to purchase from our farmers, et cetera. And we agreed to that. People thought it was 15 because they were doing 15. We made it 50 because I misunderstood the 15. I said, you got to get 50. Because when I asked, if you remember the story, when I asked, what are we doing with them? My Secretary of Agriculture at the time, Sonny Perdue, said, sir, it's about 15 billion and we're asking for 15. And I thought he said 50. So I said, so they came back with a deal at 15. And I said, no way, I want 50 because you said 50. They said, sir, we didn't say that. Anyway, bottom line, I said, go back and ask for 50. And they gave us 50. And they were honoring the deal. And we would call them up a lot for the corn and for the wheat and for everything. They were honoring the deal. And then when Biden got in, they no longer honored the deal. There was nobody to call. I would call on an average of once every 2 weeks to say, come on, you have to speed it up a little bit. And our farmers were doing great. I said to them, buy more land and bigger tractors, if you remember. That's what happened. But the deal was a very good deal. But the best part of the deal was that we opened up China. China agreed to open itself up to American business to go in. And it would have been a great thing, I think, for China. They would be able to see things that they haven't seen. They would be able to buy products that they had never been able to buy. Would have been great for American business. I think it would have brought unity between China, better unity between China and the United States. And the bottom line is that they canceled it the last day. We were all set to sign it, and then I went a little bit angry. I got a little angry. I said, they canceled the deal. The deal was done. It was all ready to be signed, and people went over, they came back to me, sir, they don't want to sign the opening up China. Well, the biggest thing that we're discussing is the opening up China, and they've agreed to do that, but it's going to take a while to paper it. You know, that's not the easiest thing to paper.
Let me say this. What is he saying? Again, I'm going to break it down from a C student's perspective for the people in the chat. Thank you to the more than 4,300 people that is watching this on YouTube alone. Let me explain it to you in a C student's perspective. The foundation of us negotiating with China did not start at the first 100 days of his second term. It started when he initially put tariffs on China and the rest of the world and stopped them from dumping cheap steel and trash products into the United States of America and taking advantage of the United States of America in his first term, which was a long-term negotiation. It was a longer negotiation that was being implemented. And what happened? When he lost the second election, which I don't believe that he lost, because again, you're never going to convince me that 81 million people voted for Biden. But when the second election happened, I don't think that they thought that Trump would ever become president again in the first place. And so they started looking at Biden like a sucker. And even though he left tariffs in place for the most part, as far as what we started to implement against China, he wasn't able to leverage it because he didn't have the vision and he didn't do the thing that Trump was executing on in his first term. And so when China cut off the deal for opening themselves up for being able to take in our products at the same rate that we're taking in their products, so we then become an exporter nation instead of just an import nation, and we have the biggest consumers here in the United States of America that give us all of the leverage, it all went out the door when we elected Biden to become president of the United States of America, and we replaced it with diversity, equity, and inclusion, and now we got black fatigue. That's what happened. We were more concerned about gay rights and Billy Porter dancing on the White House lawn than we were about making sure that we ran up a bag. And not only that, Biden put the cherry on top of y'all. He gave y'all some spinach and then he put the cherry on top and said, look, we're also going to make sure that we run up inflation in the United States of America by like 10%. 10%. Facts, Latoya. Biden, in my opinion, could quite possibly. Bush 2 was bad, Toya. You got to be a bad person to beat Bush 2. But he is going to go down, in my opinion, as one of the worst presidents of history. And now that we look back in history on how things are playing out, and we see Trump is making deals in less than 6 months, less than 3 months of his presidency. He has already been making deals and renegotiating and putting America in the best position possible. We already have record low inflation. Jerome Powell still refused to lower rates. We have record low inflation already in a record amount of days. He's removing people that shouldn't supposed to be here. Democrats are fighting him on every front, but we still pushing forward. And people are still skeptical that this guy is not going to be the president, the best president of all time. So now we back at the table. And I also believe, low key, this is my own personal opinion, can't substantiate it with fact. I also believe that low key, Trump is making them pay for not doing the deal the first time because they didn't think that he was going to become president again. Everybody miscalculated. Everybody miscalculated. Now they got to pay the price. Now you got to pay the piper. Now you got to give us more. Now you got to give us more now. That's what's playing out.
But that's the single, I think, to me, some people would disagree. Some people would say we're getting a lot of money with tariffs or whatever. But, you know, especially when you add what we already have. Because remember, we're already getting the 50% on steel and different things. That's not included in these numbers. So you can add that. But the biggest thing to me is the opening up. I think it would be fantastic for our businesses if we could go in and compete with China. It would be a lot of jobs for China. It would be, I think, at a time when they can frankly use the jobs. And that's what we're talking about. So that's a very, very important element to add. So when Scott, I watched him speak the other day, and I think he didn't want to say it, but I said, it's okay to say it. Look, if we don't get it, we don't get it. But if we don't get it, it won't be a positive thing. But if we do get it, I think it's maybe the most important thing to happen. Because if you think about it, we opened up our country to China. They have very few restrictions. And they didn't open their country to us. Never made sense to me. It's not fair. And they've agreed to open China, fully open China. And I think it's going to be fantastic for China. I think it's going to be fantastic for us. And I think it's going to be great for unification and peace. China will also suspend and remove all of its non-monetary barriers. They've agreed to do that. Well, they're very numerous. But again, to me, the biggest thing that came out of that meeting is they've agreed. Now we have to get it papered, but they've agreed to open up China. It's going to be great for everybody. And third, I'm very happy to announce that Idan Alexander, an American citizen who until recently most thought was no longer living, thought was dead, is going to be released in about 2 hours, actually. And he's going to be released before the eyes of Steve Witkoff, who has done a fantastic job.
It took us.
I know a lot of people that have a lot of talent. I know Steve had a lot of talent
in order to get Brittany Griner.
But I know a lot of people with a lot of talent. But there's one that I thought had a special way about him, special personality. Aside from being a good deal maker, had a special way about him, and it was Steve. Knew very little about the subject matter. Who does? But he learned it in about 2 hours. And he's been fantastic. So I want to just thank Steve. But they're going to be releasing Idan in about 2 hours from now, or sometime. And again, they thought he was dead just a short while ago. His parents are so happy. They're so.
Yo, shout out to the Trump administration. We got to give them a round of applause. Because I've never seen a president get this much done in my lifetime, in my 43 years on earth. I've never seen a president get so many wins and get so many dubs in such a short amount of time.